Well, good day to you. How are you doing? I'm here to talk or to continue not so much on racism, but on racial profiling. You see, there is so much racial profiling that is taking place here in the metropolitan and in the community, whereby we are flooded, I would say flooded with individual not knowing to do when they have been racial profiled by those that are in law enforcement. It was back in 2012 that the Human Rights Commission awarded an individual who had been taken down at in an high risk um, position, and he was awarded $40,000 for his suffering and the abuse that he has sustained by the authorities that had racial profiled him. It was said that the Toronto police violated Ontario's human rights code when he pursued, then pulled his gun on an innocent black man driving home from work in a BMW. So it seems as if a black man is driving a black mobile wagon, which is they have called it, or Batman mobile wagon, they are stigmatized and pointed out as individual who commits crime or obtain their funds through criminal activities. The report goes on to say that the Toronto Police Services Board and police officer Ryan Baker have been ordered to jointly pay the victim $40,000 in damage for injury to dignity, feelings, and self-respect in connection with the harrowing November 2005 incident. It goes on to say that the Toronto police spokesman Ryan Burgash said the service is seriously considering appealing the decision. In paragraph 13 of the decision, which states, the question before me is not whether the respondent acted responsible in these difficult circumstances, but whether Mr. Maynard's race was a contributing factor in their treatment of him. They acknowledge that there were difficult circumstances, but they say it doesn't matter whether the police officer acted reasonable. That is extremely concerning to the extremely concerning to the adjudicator, whereby the adjudicator came by the decision of awarding the victim in this matter $40,000. So there is a high cost that is attached to racial profiling. And that is why those who do racial profiling must, and I say must, keep in account the human cost of racial profiling and also the economical cost that it implements on the taxpayers through the agency which commit these racial profiling. One other report from the Human Rights Commission dated October 2001, October 21st, 2003. So we could say that's 10 years now since this report has been made. It says, while racial profiling has long been a concern for members of racialized communities, recently there has been heightened public debate on the issue. The focus has primarily been on whether racial profiling exists in Ontario, who engage in it, who is targeted, whether it is legitimate practice, and what can be done to prevent it. However, what has been notable absent from the public decision is an analysis of the effect that racial profiling or even a perception of it occurring has and as thus directly impacted and on the Ontario society as a whole. Through its racial profiling increase, the Ontario Human Rights Commission hopes to fill this void by illustrating the harm costs of profiling. In December 2002, the eve of International Human Rights Day, the Commission announced that it would conduct an inquiry into the effect of racial profiling on the racial profiling principle of the Ontario Human Rights Code. It goes on to say in February 2003, also dating back 10 years, the Commission inquiry was officially launched with terms of reference that defined what constitute racial profiling from the Commissioner's perspective, explained it explained the purpose of the initiative and the set out of the commission's process for hearing people's experiences. Advertising concerns the inquiry were placed in 43 Ontario daily newspaper and 17 French newspapers and 30 ethnic and aboriginal newspapers as well. So the information or the message has been communicated or been transferred and noted in the ethnic community. So there is no reason why the community at large should be ignorant of the fact or afraid to acknowledge themselves that racial profiling is a problematic issue in the communities. It says it advertised 30 ethnic newspapers, which goes on to say that it affects not only the black community where this individual was or is from, but it affects a number of different marginalized and ethnic community as well as the Aboriginal. Or the government or the Human Rights Commission would not spend taxpayers' money and advertise in these papers. So we as a community should no longer put our heads in the sand and say racial discrimination will go away. It has been well over 500 years since the black community has been freed, quote unquote, on paper that is, from mental and physical slavery, or should I say physical slavery. However, the psychological slavery still exists. If we would go to the book of Philemon in the Bible, you will see how a slave who had run away from his master and ended up in prison with the Apostle Paul. And upon him having communication with the Apostle Paul, it then so happened that the slave was converted and now take on Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. And in so doing, Paul wrote a note and sent back with the slave to go back to his master. And the letter inscribed that the master must now take the slave or the ex-slave now not only as a slave or a runaway slave who has returned, but now accept him as his equal. And this is what I'm trying to bring out here in this community today. There are agencies which represent the city or the government which is stigmatizing and brutalizing those who are from the black community. It was not too long ago, a young lady was saying to me that her son was a victim of a fatal victim of an automobile incident. And she goes on to say her lawyer advised her that her child is not as valuable as it is to an Oriental child, due to the fact that society or those that who are in authority sees the Oriental um, ethnic group more of a valuable resource or equity than a black child's life. And